The Uncleaned Rifle, on March 23, 1918, at Wood Green Empire Theatre, London. American magician William Ellsworth Robinson, performing as Chung Ling Soo, was conducting his most famous illusion, Condemned to Death by the Boxers. Robinson had built a career on the persona of a silent Chinese magician. The act's climax involved assistants firing marked bullets from 2 rifles at him, which he would appear to catch. The trick relied on modified rifles where the gunpowder flash occurred in a separate chamber, creating the effect of a gunshot without ever discharging the bullet in the main barrel. Over hundreds of performances, however, a small amount of unburned gunpowder residue had accumulated in the actual firing barrel of one of the rifles due to inadequate cleaning. On this night, the flash from the trick chamber was strong enough to ignite the residue, which in turn propelled the live bullet with lethal force. The bullet struck Robinson in the chest and he collapsed on stage. Breaking character for the first time in his career, he said, "Oh my God, something's happened. Lower the curtain." He was transported to a hospital but died the following morning. The investigation confirmed his death was accidental, caused by a fatal oversight in weapon maintenance, a failure of timing. During a performance in 1930, Springfontein, South Africa, escape artist Charles Rowan, known as Carr the Magician, attempted a highly dangerous outdoor stunt. Rowan was tightly bound in a regulation straitjacket and laid on a road. A car was positioned 200 yards away and on a signal would accelerate directly toward him. Rowan had only the time it took for the vehicle to cover that distance to free himself and move to safety. He had performed the escape many times, but on this day, he struggled with the straitjacket's buckles for slightly longer than usual. The driver, focused on his role, did not deviate from his speed. As the car barreled toward him at an estimated 45 miles per hour, it became clear to the horrified audience that Rowan was not going to escape in time. He was still struggling with his restraints when the vehicle reached him. The impact was catastrophic, causing massive unsurvivable injuries. Rowan was killed almost instantly, a tragic victim of an act where a single second's delay made the difference between escape and death. The Fatal Volley. In November of 1820, Arnstadt, Germany, Polish magician Madame DeLinsky was performing a variation of the bullet catch for Prince Karl Günther von Schwarzburg-Sondershausen. The act, known as the Fatal Volley, involved a firing squad of 6 local soldiers. 5 of their muskets were to be loaded with blank charges, while a 6th would contain a live, marked bullet. The soldiers would fire simultaneously and DeLinsky would appear to catch the single live round. The trick's success depended on the magician secretly substituting the live round with a blank before the volley. Historical accounts suggest a critical failure in this process. It remains unclear whether DeLinsky, who was pregnant at the time, made an error during the inspection or if a soldier reloaded a live round after her check. When the 6 soldiers took aim and fired, the trick went horribly wrong. A live round was discharged, striking Madame DeLinsky in the abdomen. She collapsed on stage, and despite immediate medical assistance, the wound proved too severe. She died 2 days later, her death becoming one of the earliest documented failures of the bullet catch illusion. The Halloween Tomb, on October 31, 1990, at Blackbeard's Family Fun Center, California. 32-year-old amateur escape artist Joseph Amazing Joe Burrus attempted a buried alive stunt. He was handcuffed, locked in a homemade plexiglass coffin, and lowered into a 7-foot deep grave. The plan was to cover the coffin with tons of dirt and wet cement from which he intended to escape. Burrus had fatally miscalculated the immense pressure of wet concrete versus loose soil. While he had tested the coffin's durability under dirt, he failed to account for the far greater weight and force of the cement. As the first load of wet cement was poured from a mixer truck, the plexiglass lid shattered instantly under the immense pressure. The coffin filled with concrete and dirt, burying Burrus in seconds and causing death by crush asphyxia. The crew on site attempted a frantic rescue, but their efforts were hopeless against the rapidly hardening mixture. By the time emergency crews could excavate the grave, Burrus had already perished, his body entombed within the solid block he had intended to escape. The Dented Can. In 1930, Frankfurt, Germany, the acclaimed escape artist Genesta, Royden Joseph Gilbert Raison de la Genesta, was performing his signature act, the milk can escape. This illusion involved being submerged in a large milk can filled with water, with the lid secured by multiple padlocks. The escape relied on a hidden release mechanism inside the can's neck, which allowed him to open it from within. During transport to the venue, the heavy metal milk can was accidentally dropped, causing a small but significant dent in the neck. Believing the damage was merely cosmetic, the crew proceeded with the performance. During the show, Genesta was sealed inside as usual. However, when he attempted to operate the internal release, he found it was jammed. The dent had warped the metal frame just enough to prevent the mechanism from disengaging. His assistants heard frantic banging from inside and rushed to free him. They used an axe to break the locks and pry open the lid, but it was too late. Genesta had drowned. His reliable escape apparatus turned into an inescapable tomb by a simple accident. Punches of consequence. On October 31st, 1926, Detroit, Michigan. The world's most famous magician, Harry Houdini, died from peritonitis caused by a ruptured appendix. His death was not on stage, but was a direct result of the invincible persona he had cultivated. 10 days prior, in his dressing room in Montreal, Houdini was approached by a university student, Gordon Whitehead. Whitehead questioned Houdini about his claim that he could withstand any punch to the abdomen. Before Houdini could brace himself, Whitehead delivered several powerful, unexpected blows to the magician's midsection. Houdini was already suffering from what was likely appendicitis, and the punches are believed to have ruptured his appendix. A staunch believer in his own physical prowess, Houdini ignored the escalating pain and a high fever, continuing to travel and perform. He finally collapsed after a show in Detroit and was rushed to a hospital. Doctors diagnosed him with peritonitis from the rupture, but the infection was too advanced. After battling for several days, Harry Houdini died. The man who had escaped countless traps was ultimately killed by his own refusal to acknowledge his body's vulnerability. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe for more, and feel free to leave your suggestions for what's next in the comment section down below.